officials, and it has unions who are there as observers in the whole process. I think where the allegations in the report come through is that what is meant to be an observatory role is turning into a role that has more influence where, according to the report, it's alleged that the union officials are wielding undue influence on the whole process, and that's where the problem is alleged to have come in.
But we hear about this undue influence in various sectors, be it state capture or be it certain family influences, and very little evidence really comes out of it. And that's my concern, in the sense that there is a ministerial task team that's going to investigate this. But does this fall in the ambit of corruption, or is it more an oversight on the department if the responsibility rests with the Department of Education to place educators in schools?
You see, the problem here is not that it's only SADTU, other unions that are also involved in this. I think the problem starts when there are vacancies at some stage. And now you find that the people who have been promoted, who are in positions, they come from a certain union. So when they are in their government positions, and then the people who are applying for the jobs, they've been in the same union. So that comes into play, although it's not an obvious thing, but that's what's influencing the whole thing. That if you are employed, if government has got officials who are from the SADTU or whatever, then the SADTU man wants to be the HOD or whatsoever, then the people who are involved, they are the parties. And the problem we're having is that people who are in the post, they don't have administration skills. It's just that I've been an activist in the union, I've been a senior shop steward. Then if I've been a shop steward, then the job which comes is for those guys who do more.
All right,
Although it's not just obvious, but it's something which is within the system. The system is clogged with that.
All right, we'll test that theory. But Nhlapo is calling us from Sasolburg, and Themba, we see you as well. Hi, Nhlapo.
How are you, Cindy?
I'm good, thank you. And what's your question or view?
No, actually, my point of view is that I blame the whole thing squarely on the ANC as government. ANC should distance itself from public service union. If you look at our public service, it has totally collapsed. It's not only at the Department of Education, but entirely. The relationship of ANC and SADTU and how has actually crippled and collapsed the public service. It is a fact. I'm calling you as it is a fact in our working environment. You are told that if you are not a member of SADTU, you will never get any promotion. And then if you are not a member of ANC, you can never serve in the leadership of SADTU. So the only solution in this matter is that ANC must distance itself from public service union and take responsibility as government. That is the first step. That's the first step.
Thank you so much for calling us from Sasolburg. Motema, hello. Good evening, Motema. Hi. Okay, he's got his TV on. When you switched off the volume, we'll come back to you. But the separation of power here, if the unions are politically affiliated with the ANC, how then is this playing it out in the working environment where there's supposed to be impartiality and fairness and due diligence and oversight, Professor?
Yeah, there's been a problem. We all know that there is this issue of deployment of certain cadres. That also has got a role to play in the appointment of people. And then it goes deeper to say, can you actually sometimes deploy a person that you don't know or you don't trust? So buddyism is a point that also leads to the problem of seeing, people making a chain from the teachers up to the department of people who would nest one another's, and then give them position that they don't deserve.
But in an ideal world, if that body you appointed is the best candidate to do the job, they're the most qualified and they comply with the criteria of the job requirements, then that should not necessarily be a disadvantage to the person who's applying for the job purely because you happen to be friends with them. Or am I missing the point here? Mthala?
A person, even as a body, should be qualified, but in the world we're living in, it's not like that. You've got a soft spot for your friend, and then it's not only professionalism which works, it's also the friendship which also comes into play.
But you can recuse yourself from the panel. I'm not saying you appoint them directly and you're the one that makes the final decision, but you do recommend. It is human nature that we perpetuate ourselves and our circles and our networks. You're likely to recommend, look, I think Troy would be good for this job, etc. But you recuse yourself from undue influence within the process. So I'm saying in terms of deployment of PALs or cadres, that it need not necessarily be seen as a blanket or the epitome of the corruption that we see in the country. Troy?
Well, I think this is why what the report has highlighted is that we need to tighten our recruitment operations and the way that we recruit people into the system. And we've already started the process of developing the criteria for principalship, for example, and this is where we find most of this corruption has raised its ugly head, is in the appointment of promotional posts in particular, and those are principal posts are included in those. So what we're doing is we're designing a system where you have to have competency tests for principals. So if you want to become a principal, you have to attain a certain level of qualification, a certain number of years in the system, and you have to participate in a competency test. Now, the competency test isn't only to determine what, if you're good enough, it also defines where you need continuous development, where as a department we can come on board and support you in terms of training and development and ongoing support. And we believe that this is one of the mechanisms that will really tighten the controls around this type of situation. Also, when I mentioned the oversight panels, for example, that will ratify these decisions. There'll be high-level panels that will look into, the appointment, who the candidates are, what the recommendations are from the various stakeholders, and then go over and above that and look at who is the best candidate for the job. And I think when you put those oversight measures in place, it really does take a lot of that undue influence out of the equation.
Let's take Thomas in Limpopo. Hi, Thomas.
Hi, thank you very much for letting me in. You see, one of the things that I need to highlight with greatest emphasis is this entire problem comes from the seniors on top. And I am saying this I'm not sure, without any doubt, that unless the problem is being healed within the ANC leadership structures themselves, corruption will be spreading like a syndrome to all other organizational structures. This problem of corruption is there, and it's alive, and we cannot deny it. Okay, we cannot even become too modern about it, try to protect it. But the problem is, to heal it, it has to start within the main structures themselves. That's what I wanted to say. And it's unfortunate that the people that pay the price ultimately are our own students, our own children. They end up paying the big price because they're being given people without skill, without knowledge, because they've got specific political connection. This is corruption at its best, and it has to find a way to stop.
All right, thanks so much, Thomas. But, dare I say that this is primarily a black problem, because these things happen in townships, it happens in far-flung areas of Awani, and, in terms of infrastructure or resources. So why is it that in former Model C schools, we don't hear about corruption and people paying for jobs? Why is it that this problem is systemic in the black community? I'll start with you, Mthala. Is it only a black problem in education? Let's just call it what it is.
I wouldn't like to say it's only the black problem. I think it's a problem within education. because the people who are running the education, some of them, they're implicated. So they also run even those Model C schools. I think they do it where it fits that you can do this corruption, where they are strong measures. Like as I'm saying to you, if you have got strong SGPs, you wouldn't find this thing. Look, I can make it just a mistake if an example if I'm allowed. There is a school which we have been dealing with, and N7 went to Vizugutle in Peter Marisbeck. Even now, we've mentioned to the HOD, the report is there, that one of the teachers, Mematlaba, as a teacher, she is a treasurer of the SGP, and then the teacher, Mrs. Beals, the acting principal, also voted for Mrs. Matlaba to be the treasurer. Now, it's just a chain of corruption. It's not that it's about the black people only. Corruption is just corruption because
You're quite right. I mean, I'm a product myself of Kenun Rakale in Guatemala Springs and Seker Bos Rant in Niger, but I just wanted to put it out there that it's something that we obviously need to put under the microscope. But just the timelines, I'm afraid we're running out of time, so I'll give you just 30 seconds or so for both of you to respond. We'll start with you, Professor.
The difference is that our parents, black parents, are not playing ball with their schools. They don't attend meetings when they are called. They have got, little interest in the education of their children. That is why you find this thing happening. In white schools, the white parents are also educated. Some of them are lawyers, some of them are, accountants. They know the money, they know the business, and then you can't simply hire a person that they are not happy with. Now, with us, the black people, we like to say the teacher and the principal, they know everything, and then we hand over the responsibilities to the school. That is why things are happening in the rural areas, in the township, more than in the white or cities.
And hopefully that will change with the next generation.
We hope so.
Troy, just timelines in terms of this ministerial task team. When are they supposed to report back, and what happens if you'll talk us through the process?
Well, the Minister has given the ministerial task team, and more especially the forensic investigation part of the team, until the end of August to report back to her on their findings. And we're hoping what will come from that is that criminal charges, enough evidence will be found for criminal charges to be laid against those who alleged corruption has been made against them.
Yeah, and we hope the corruptee and the corruptor in this case will get equal
Most
penalty.
definitely.
But to our panelists, thank you so much as always. Thanks for your time, and you at home, thanks for taking the trouble to call in. We'll take a